We're even half as genuine as me, then war would be another distant memory. But that's my ego talking. Yeah, I'm constantly deluded by awareness, guided by these enemies. It's funny that I have all these different sides to me. How I balance all of them to me is still a mystery. I'm aware that I can talk by pussy, money, weed, and some I make it spiritual. What that's my destiny? My heritage goes beyond the land of two seas, or would I rather say beyond the seas connecting we? Are we all a figment of subconscious machinations, or the play of a universe dreaming in the basement? Genderless identity, colorless and never seen. Yoga from my yogini, manifest the evergreen. Music from Saraswati, gratitude I got from Christ. Shiva teach me how to be Yahweh in my dreams tonight. Allah.
I'm not afraid of the man who has done 1,000 different moves once. I'm afraid of the man who has practiced one move 1,000 times. You understand the point?
Am I disappearing?
Hi, everybody. Welcome to Therapy Thursday, third Thursday of the month. I am Ariel Silver. I am the program manager over at the SONA Foundation. We are a 501c3 nonprofit organization created by songwriters for songwriters, and we are always rolling out new events and programs and resources for songwriters. This is February 2025, if you are watching as this is happening, and this is our February episode of our monthly Fireside chat conversation. This month we are talking about the immigrant experience, and we do this monthly show in partnership with our friends over at Backline. And in a moment I will bring in Terra Lopez, who's the community manager over there at Backline. Before we do that, I just want to make sure that you know about some of the programs that we recently have rolled out. In the wake of the Los Angeles fires, we relaunched a emergency grant program for songwriters. It's called the Songwriter Fund, and the portal is still open. We are still taking applications. If you have already applied for the Songwriter Fund for the emergency relief in the wake of the LA fires, if you're here local to where we are, if you've already applied, be patient. We're making our way. A lot of applications. A lot of folks have been affected, of course, by this widespread disaster in our city. But meanwhile, we also have an upcoming live stream webinar on March 4th that is all about how to make those disaster funds last. And that's a free webinar. You can sign up for that at our website, sonafoundation.com. And feel free, you can reach out to us anytime. You can reach us through the website or respond to those emails that you get from me occasionally, about once a month, if you have signed up for our SONA Foundation mailing list, where I tell you all about those programs. We also have an upcoming Music and Money event. This is our season 2 kickoff in March, so definitely keep your eyes out for that. We don't have the ticket link yet, but that will be in Los Angeles. And we have these monthly Fireside chats with Backline, as well as some other events and programs. Lots of resources on the website, so we hope you'll go over there and check it out, sonafoundation.com. I am going to be in the background of this show, just monitoring the chat. If you have questions, feel free to post them in the chat, and I will make sure that Terra gets to them. She will be facilitating the conversation today with our 2 guest songwriters, Esjay and Ashwin, and she's going to introduce them and tell you all about them. Really excited for this conversation. Thank you so much for being here. I hope that you'll share in the chat where you're from currently, where you're tuning in from, and also if you have your own immigrant experience. If you came to the United States from somewhere else outside the borders, we'd love to hear from you. Or if you have some other experiences that you'd like to share. This is our series on mental health for songwriters. I'm going to bring Terra right in. Hi, Terra.
Hey, Ariel. Thank you so much for hosting. This is always my favorite day of the month.
Oh, yeah, I always look forward to this. And we've been doing this for a while now, almost 2.5 years, maybe something like that, 18, 19 episodes, maybe longer. I can't remember now. And I want to congratulate you and the team over at Backline, because you guys have been doing a phenomenal job on a lot of different fronts, and you have recently gotten some, real recognition for the work that you're doing. So I'm excited to just continue to have our relationship with you guys and do this monthly program with you, and also watch all of the other stuff that you've got going on.
Well, thank you so much. And likewise, we're just so grateful to work with the SONA Foundation and provide this resource for songwriters.
Yeah. Well, Terra, I'm gonna get off the screen so that you can tell everybody a little bit about Backline and also introduce our guests and get the conversation rolling. So thanks for being here, and I'll see you at the end of the show.
Awesome. Hey, everyone. Like Ariel mentioned, I'm Terra Lopez. I'm the community manager and head of artist partnerships at Backline. And if you don't know, Backline is a resource hub for the music industry. We provide resources and tools to everyone in the industry, from artists, promoters, managers, everyone and their family members. And so we are really excited for this very special fireside chat to talk about mental health for songwriters, and specifically the immigration experience. So today we have some incredible guests for this very topical issue. We have Esjay Jones. Esjay is a South African-born Grammy-featured producer, engineer, songwriter, based between LA and Yucca Valley. She's worked with everyone from Billy Corgan, Nile Rodgers, Sean Kingston, and so many more. We also have Ashwin Shenoy, aka Xenai, is an Indian-born Kingdom of Bahrain Grammy-nominated singer-songwriter, artist, actor, composer, producer, engineer. He's worked with major brands, everyone from Nissan to Philip Morris to Suzuki, and we're really, really excited to have their two perspectives. And lastly, we have Backline Clinical Director Ari Jacobson. If you have tuned in to one of these fireside chats, you know Ari. He's instrumental in growing Backline's clinical referral network and is just an invaluable member of the Backline team. Like Ariel mentioned, she's going to be moderating the chat box. So please feel free to drop any questions in the chat box, and I will do my best to try to get to them. But let's add everyone so that you can meet lovely folks. Hey, Esjay. Hey, Ashwin.
Good morning. Afternoon.
Morning, afternoon. You know, it really depends on
Depends.
state and also just vibe. So thank you all so much for joining us. We're really excited for this conversation, very important conversation, and just really excited to get to hear more about your story and your journey. And I like to kick off these conversations with just the simple, how are you doing today?
Doing great. It's a joy to be here with all of you, and looking forward to spending this time together. Thank you for asking.
Likewise, it's the same. I'm very happy to be here. Thank you for having us. It's a good day so far. I like that the sun is shining.
Yes, that's always a win, right?
Yeah.
Ari, how are you doing?
I'm good. I'm always happy to be here. I love being a part of these conversations and just honored to be a part of them. So excited to be here.
Awesome. Well, thank you all so much. Again, folks, if you're tuning in, let us know where you're tuning in from. I see that Carlos is coming in from Santa Ana, California. Awesome. All right. So I would like to start this conversation off, Esjay and Ashwin, by asking you a little bit about your personal immigration journey. Where were you born and raised? How old were you when you came to the United States, and what brought you here?
I'll jump right in. I'm from a gorgeous coastal town in South Africa called Durban. It feels very much like San Diego, to those wondering. And I was 26 years old. I think that was 2008 or 2009 when I first stepped foot on US soil, which was exhilarating. And I originally came to the US with my then band, Stealing Love Jones. We did a 3-month tour of the US, which was a beautiful disaster. And then once back in South Africa, I applied for my O1 visa, came back to the States, and then became a US citizen 7 years after that.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you. Hell of a story, hell of a journey.
Oh, I'm sure. Ashwin, what about you?
I also grew up in a beautiful place, a tiny island in the middle of the Arabian Gulf called Kingdom of Bahrain. We get different nicknames. One of it is the Oasis in the desert. Another one is Saudi's Las Vegas. So, uh, very multicultural hub. Definitely melting pot. People from all around the world, including South Africa. A lot of immigrants from all over the world. So
I
I was
have
very
been to Bahrain.
beautiful
So
place.
it is.
So very fortunate to have been exposed to a lot of different, cultures, religions, ethnicities, and people. And so, yeah, I came to the States when I was 18, back in 2012. I came to Boston. I went there for my undergrad. So,
Okay.
yeah, I went to do my degree. I studied music at Berkeley and worked for about a year and a half. And then that's when I applied for the O1 and unfortunately did not get it the first time. That was when around 2018, it was, the new administration had kicked in with a little bit harsher, um, you know, policies towards immigrants. So it was not just me, but a lot of other people who were sent back home on the basis of like false accusations or assumptions and everything. And I had to move back home for 4 years, and now I'm here again,
Yay.
applying for the same. I'm applying for the same visa actually. So I'll be finding out within 10 days whether I get it or not.
Yay.
Oh,
Holding
wow.
thumbs.
Okay, we're putting all that good energy out, and really, really hoping that you get it.
Thank you.
I'd like to know, in what ways has your immigration experience influenced your sense of identity? Especially both of you came to the U.S., you were adults. Yeah, how has that experience been for you?
Ashwin, take it away.
You want me to go? Okay. I think because I've definitely lived a nomadic lifestyle for as long as I can remember, never truly having a sense of stability or home in a way. Home, even back home in Bahrain, I'm not necessarily a citizen there. I'm also an immigrant there. So for me to go back to the house I grew up in, and back home where I lived all my life, I have to apply for a visa. So it's always been this sense of like, okay, can I even stay with my family right now, or are they going to send me to India where I've never actually lived?
Wow.
Not actually from there. I have extended family over there, but it's not a place that I grew up myself. So that has definitely inspired a lot of the way I think about life and how I put that into my music. I mean, I have just this alien necklace over here, and Xenai represents that. Xenai represents the unidentified, the place within ourselves that witnesses the human experience. For many immigration policies and things, we tend to profile people based on their ethnicity, their skin color, and everything. And so I felt like I wanted to create an artistic identity that represented a space that is not my ethnicity, not my culture, not who I am on the outside, but my soul, the alien.
I love that.
I love it. Esjay, what about you? Anything that Ashwin said maybe resonates?
Yeah, I think, leaving your home country means leaving behind family, familiarity, culture, the comfort of everything that you know. And I think that really forced me to redefine who I was in a new environment. It definitely strengthened my resilience and adaptability, qualities which I now carry into both my personal life and career. I think being an immigrant and a woman, you have to work. It feels like 100 times harder to establish yourself, to prove your worth in rooms. But I think that experience has fueled a lot of immigrants' determination and has really made me more appreciative for the opportunities I've created.
Wow. Esjay, having to work, feeling like you have to work 100 times harder to prove your own worth, to be in those rooms. How does that affect you creatively, but also just your mental health on a day-to-day basis? I would assume it would take a toll.
Absolutely. I mean, it really, anxiety and self-doubt are so common when you're in a new place where you often have to feel pressure to adapt quickly or to prove yourself. I think this leads to imposter syndrome, where you really have to question whether you truly belong. So yeah, it's exhausting because you're trying to balance all of these emotional things as well as the financial side and the legal aspect. So there's so many layers to that beautiful onion question.
Yeah, and both of you kind of mentioned feeling that uncertainty, and then I'm obviously leaving your home and all that you know for this, and leaving that comfort and just familiar spaces. How dealing with that uncertainty on a day-to-day, Ashwin, especially right now, kind of just waiting for that answer, how does that affect your mental state on a
I mean, lack of sleep sometimes, not sleep, like you're always kind of worried that basically you don't have a sense of autonomy because your life is in the hands of someone else who, if they're having a good day, great. If they're not, and they just maybe just don't like the way you look or something, that can determine the next 10 years of your life,
Totally.
So it's like you have to be okay with the fact that your life is not guaranteed. Like whatever you were planning for, plans are not guaranteed. So we're always moving with the sense that, okay, I have faith in what I'm doing right now, but if I have to just up and leave tomorrow, okay, I have to be okay with that. And that's something that we have to, and find peace in that.
I mean, I can only imagine how that takes a lot of work to try to find peace with such uncertainty. Ari, I mean, on your end, on the clinical side of things, how have you found immigration, immigrating to a new country? How has that affected or can affect an individual's mental health? Like Esjay and Ashwin were saying, are there some common emotional or psychological challenges that you have found folks to experience?
Sure. And first off, Esjay and Ashwin, thank you for sharing all this. I can't imagine some of the things that you are even currently still going through. So just thank you to start.
Thank you.
Esjay, you actually kind of hit it, you mentioned it perfectly, but there's just the idea of living in a life with homesickness and uncertainty. Especially in many cases, people leave home and travel to another country looking for a better opportunity than whatever it is that they're leaving. So it's not just the fear of just being sent back home and being ridiculed by family for not being successful, but there's also the uncertainty of going back to a place that's really not a healthier, safe place for you to be in general. Identity struggles are really common where you're joining, depending on what part of even the United States you might travel to, just the nature of how you're viewed and different genres are going to do better in certain parts of the country. So you're joining into a culture that could just be, between 3-hour difference could be wildly different just places. So bringing your culture into these very divisive cultures in general, and then trying to kind of fit in while being accepted with the hope that you can be successful, and then not necessarily having to go back. And then Esjay mentioned that just with that an imposter syndrome of, is this a genre? Is this the culture I want to, assimilate into? Is this the state that I want to live in? There's just so many questions that are all uncertain, and many of them are not in your own hands because of the restrictions with visas and the uncertainties with those, for sure.
Yeah, totally. And that totally causes so much anxiety. But like how you touched on, not just for me, but so many people who have left their home to build better future.
Yeah.
There's always this sense of uncertainty, whether it's related to policy changes, work opportunities, or simply just feeling accepted. Yeah, and I think the great thing is I think all of these feelings often seep into our work as creatives. So it definitely fuels a lot of the creative fire.
So let's talk about that creative fire, because I want to hear about the beauty from your both of your countries. How, are there any specific cultural elements or traditions from your home that influence the sound or storytelling of the music that you create?
Oh, absolutely. Growing up in South Africa, I was surrounded by such rich rhythms and diverse musical influences, and a deep sense of storytelling that I think naturally weaves into production and songwriting. And I think being from South Africa and this journey, the roots have given me a unique perspective on resilience, struggle, triumph. And I think the storytelling in my writing, when it makes sense, often reflects that. So, yeah, with themes of perseverance, identity, emotional, definitely something that we carry with us as immigrants.
Ashwin, can you talk a little bit more about your project as well, and more maybe about the alien persona and kind of what that brings out?
As you heard in the song that was played earlier, you could hear the oud, which is an Arabic lute. If you hear it throughout the album, there's different Hindustani classical, Indian classical, Arabic traditional instruments and rhythms that are fused into it. Because I was definitely influenced by all the things around me, but the alien specifically was because, as I mentioned in the earlier, growing up around so many different cultures, people, religions, ethnicities, all these different devices of storytelling as well. A lot of us we weren't politically identified with being progressive. We were just forced to learn to harness and be inclusive of each and every one. So we were trying to always find some sort of common ground. And that's what inspired this whole alien thing. It was like, what in me can find unity within myself? If I can't find it outside, how can I harness everyone's points of views and their beliefs in such a way that I can be inclusive of everybody? That definitely inspired a lot of storytelling and finding a way to spread a message of unity without being all of us being uniformly one sort of thing, but unity and diversity in a way.
I love that.
Did either of you experience culture shock when you came to the States? I mean, Esjay, you mentioned your band toured for 3 months, which is just difficult to do anywhere, let alone away from all that you know. What was that experience like for both of you first coming to the States?
First of all, it was a very expansive learning lesson.
Yeah.
And,
Sure.
I think my then band, Stealing Love Jones, we were such a massive fish in such a tiny pond. And so we came with really massive expectations and huge egos and delusions of grandeur of what the American culture and system offered. And it's definitely, the culture is different, the people are different, the emotional intelligence is different, the way people talk to each other tonally is different. So it was definitely a massive culture shock. And then on top of that, having a failed tour obviously just led to this emotional downward spiral. But it's all fueled to to bigger things and has been such great learning lessons to get here.
Mine's very similar to that, honestly. Like, not in terms of the tour or anything, but that culture shock is. I also was definitely a big fish in a small pond. Like, my country I'm from is so tiny, and so everyone knows each other. And if you make a little bit of buzz, a little bit of noise, you tend to be celebrated. Come out here, come to Berkeley, and I realized, oh my God, there's like so many superstars out here, and who am I compared to these people? You know,
Totally.
so there's definitely a reality check. And then, of course, you know, the way people speak tonally, the way people communicate is very different from where I was from, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
And that can have a certain impact on how, like, okay, how do I fit in? How do I adapt? I was kind of fortunate because I was used to adapting so quickly. So that was a little good for me. But at the end of the day, you know, if you're missing mom's food, you're still going to be homesick, you know, miss home
Totally.
and everything.
Totally.
Little things make a big difference when you're like away from home and you don't have access to those little comforts.
And I think that experience for both of us, you know, has taught us to embrace discomfort and uncertainty, which I think makes us more fearless in our artistry.
100%.
And that's like, you know, often gives us as immigrants the edge because we have this completely different perspective.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was going to say, I mean, in an industry like the music industry, that's certainly an edge to be comfortable with being uncomfortable, especially, I mean, I can only imagine because just going on tour in itself, in your own country is so difficult and there's so many challenges.
Crazy.
It's so much. So I can only imagine touring and also just living in it day to day in a country that is not your familiar space. Ari, what can folks do, you know, dealing with that uncertainty on a day to day? How can they kind of quell and ease some of that anxiety that they might be experiencing?
So the number one thing is finding community within an unfamiliar community. You want to find like-minded people who can really understand what you're going through, and really kind of embrace the difficulties that you're going through. Having these types of conversations with people who don't necessarily understand or have the same experience are really great. Being able to share these types of experiences helps a lot of people have a better understanding. But at the same time, you also need people who just understand you for being you and just kind of get it right off the bat. And then with that, you know, doing your best to, you know, manage the intake of information that you're getting. There's a lot of really excessive hate speech out there and a lot of hate on things, especially in this type of an industry where social media, there's just public critique is common and almost welcome. So it comes from all different areas. So being very mindful of what you're really embracing and what you're really even allowing yourself to dive into. And then at the same time, a lot of these pressures, I can only imagine again, as you come to these new countries and you're starting to perform and you're starting to feel uncomfortable because you're just in a new scenario, you dive into your music and you dive into your art, and the hope is that that's going to help you get out of whatever funk you're feeling or discomfort. But the concern there is that it will actually then replace your relaxation and it will put so much pressure on your art to solve these problems. So you also need to find something else that you can rely on that is just going to allow you to relax and find yourself, whether meditation, exercise, find an instrument that you're not going to perform on stage, but you want to learn to play just for the hell of it. It's all about maintaining your own mental health and maintaining your longevity in this type of career. That's going to keep you even going with it. And actually, Esjay and Ashwin, Terra, I just have this question that's been looming that I have to ask.
Please.
I'm curious just about, like, when you all came over, the pressure that you felt. You know, you get up on stage and people are quick to realize that maybe you've immigrated over to the U.S. I'm just curious about the pressure you all felt, you know, kind of carrying that and knowing that some people are going to immediately have critiques just for where you're from or a message you're trying to send. As I've always said, I'm Jewish. I can walk around and I can hide that I'm Jewish. My brother is adopted from Chile. So my
Wow.
brother, as I explained, my brother he's brown. He went to pretty much all white school as a brown man, and just seeing his difference in terms of like the pressures he carried amongst that community was wildly different than what I experienced. So I'm really just curious to hear what your experiences was coming over with that type of pressure.
If I can jump in, I feel that the pressure came more from myself. One of the biggest psychological challenges for me, and it still is, and I definitely have not worked it out, but is the pressure to succeed. I think often as an immigrant, like we feel that we have to figure out how to earn a seat at this table. And that drive is motivating and exhausting, again, leading to burnout or self-doubt. So getting up on stage, I felt very welcomed in the United States, to be honest. I think the pressure is mainly from my side, just feeling like you have to succeed, you have to prove your worth. It's like you gave up everything in your home country, like you can't be a failure. So I think that is a deep-rooted pain that I'm sure I'm not alone in, and the feeling of like, if I don't make this happen, like I just feel like such a loser. So I think these are massive psychological and huge burdens to bear. But overall, I have felt and extremely accepted for the majority of the time in the United States. And I feel like the accent has given an edge and maybe opened doors to rooms that wouldn't have. So I think really leaning into your culture is important too.
I would say that, honestly, it's so true what Esjay said. The pressure does come from yourself. I felt a lot more accepted here than I did at home, because back at home, a lot of people are trying to sound American, in the music at least. I'm talking purely just in the entertainment side.
Great
Everyone
point.
wants to hide their culture and try to feel a lot more, like they're a lot more in with what's going on in America. So when I came here, I realized embracing my culture and really leaning in on what I have that makes me unique was giving me an advantage. Showcasing my culture, showcasing some of the sounds that I have that not necessarily a lot of people here grew up around. People really love to see that. People here love innovation. They love something new. So I think that helped me to really understand that the only way I can make it over here is if I lean in on what makes me unique, what makes me stand out. Otherwise, if I try to fit in, it's just like it's me against however many people are here. It's like then it's a competition.
Right.
But instead of fighting against the grain, it's more about like what makes me stand out, what makes my voice heard the best, and what makes it unique. It helps. It makes it a lot more effective, and eases the burden and the pressure that we feel would be a lot greater if we tried to fit in.
Well, like Ari mentioned, there's currently a lot of hateful rhetoric going around. I feel like every day, sadly, is just continuing to build. How do the current societal and political shifts affect that anxiety or influence your outlook on the future?
Can I just jump in?
Yeah,
please.
I definitely felt the effects. 2018, when 2016 happened, we had our new administration. A lot of divisive hate speech was being spread around. Okay, the slide just went off. A lot of divisive and hate speech was being, spread on the news and social media and everything. I noticed that the way people look at people started looking at me when I walked into certain rooms made a difference, at least when I was in Boston at the time. Right here, I noticed a lot of people have this sense of community of trying to look out for each other. But I noticed that my skin color and, sometimes my features can give off an impression that people may be like, hey, you're part of the problem. We need you out here. We need
Wow.
you out of here. And I noticed I had a lot of that experience, just, playing by the rules. I was doing everything right, doing all the, paying my taxes, working my jobs and everything. But despite that, it was being profiled into you're not from here and everything. And
Mm-hmm.
it wasn't necessarily targeted to people of, let's say, lighter skin color, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So I just felt that this sort of divisive nature was having an effect on certain groups, certain minorities. Um, but yeah, I think that's basically, it has an effect, it has an impact.
Mm-hmm. And you're constantly hearing narratives that make you feel so unwelcome.
Mhm.
Not only as an immigrant, for myself as a gay woman, it's like you really have to question your place in this country. And it creates a sense of instability. And there's always, again, this underlying pressure to prove yourself and to justify that you belong. And it's exhausting, just both mentally and emotionally. The uncertainty around these policies, work opportunities, basic rights, it's all just so overwhelming because you don't know what the future is going to hold. And it all of a sudden just adds this extra layer of stress that I think people don't fully understand unless you've lived it.
Mhm.
Um,
Um, yeah, personally, in my experience, having to leave home, usually when they reject a visa, they give you some time to pack up and leave. But this was when it was just the height of, I would honestly say, ignorance. I just getting a letter just saying you're now an illegal immigrant based on false accusations that my evidence that I provided for my portfolio was fake.
Wow.
Even though it was completely legitimate, everything was just absolutely, 100% on the dot. It was just like, we need to say no because, detention centers were being filled up and ICE raids were happening. So people were just trying to say no for any small reason. And that was just like getting a letter that says you're now illegal, you need to leave immediately. I was working 2 jobs in a relationship at the time and paying my taxes. I had to close up shop. I had to I had to, quit the job. I had to close off my health insurance and all these other things. That takes time, but you still have the chance of being detained for overstaying by like even a week. And I'm like,
Wow.
yeah, I just need to close up shop. I need to do all these other things. I can't just leave. I can't just uproot my whole life. Those are drastic changes that can cause a lot of trauma. And that took me about 4 years to, you know, recover from consistent meditation to sort of detach from that trauma and everything. And that definitely impacted a lot of my development in terms of, just, focusing on social situations and everything that can impact those things. Now, having fully recovered from that, I realized that, oh, that is PTSD. That is a form of post-traumatic stress.
Yeah. I mean, that's such a massive emotional side, feeling like an outsider having to deal with that.
Yeah.
And then
Alone as well at that time.
Totally. And then I think, a lot of people don't realize the legal and financial side of all of that. Just what you were talking about, the visa restrictions, the work permits, the constant uncertainty of whether you'll be able to stay and continue to build this career, which you've invested every cent that you have in just trying to get here. And yeah, and these challenges are rarely talked about, but they shape so many artists and producers and creatives who have really had to fight for their place in the United States.
it is just, it's wild that we don't have these conversations more often, because I mean, Ashwin, you just saying, getting this letter in the mail and then realizing that you have to leave the 2 jobs that you're in, the relationship that you're in, let alone your community, your friends, your music career.
You've invested so much time into it.
Right. I truly am kind of at a loss for words at just the magnitude of that loss and that trauma, and how, I mean, I don't know how one wouldn't have PTSD after such an experience.
Yes.
And it like Esjay mentioned, there's so many individuals just within the music community that are having similar experiences, especially right now.
And there's a huge gap, right, when it comes to telling those real, raw stories of immigrants in the music industry, especially the struggles behind the success. We do often hear about artists or producers that have made it, after moving to a new country, but we don't hear enough about the uphill battle it takes to get there. It's and again, I'm going to come back to finances, but it is an extremely expensive and time-consuming path to do that. And I think a lot of Americans take that for granted. They don't realize how lucky they are to be here, and how hard it is to be a part of this amazing culture. Obviously, there's lots of things going on politically, which I might be embarrassed to be a South African right now, but I think these aren't spoken about enough.
I mean, that is a really great reminder of just, one, the conversations aren't being spoken about, and then also the stories that are being told maybe aren't the ones that really need to be told, right. And heard. But also the immense privilege of being in your born country, in the States. I think that that's definitely something that is important to remember as well. It is a privilege in a lot of ways, despite the somewhat embarrassing, very embarrassing rhetoric that is happening, and hateful rhetoric. Ari, there's so much here, right? Like, there's so much trauma, there's so much loss and grief, and also uncertainty currently. How can individuals take care of themselves in very tangible, real ways, just with the anxiety and stress that everyone has mentioned?
There is so much. So I always will preface by, this is an oversimplistic, just general idea, some thoughts, but really I'm going to always lean back that finding professional support. If there's one great thing about the US, is that we have access to a whole slew of culturally competent resources in all different parts of the country that are national or local. So finding a group or a support system that understands you and your culture and your needs is possible, but can take some time, and it's not always so easy, as we've learned looking for resources. So reaching out to your supports, building a really good support system, and then staying connected with the people within your community is really important. The one thing we also didn't kind of mention here is just the ability to try and set as firm of boundaries as you really can. If there are going to be certain parts of the country that maybe are going to be more difficult to work in, or you really shouldn't be trying to tour through, then finding a way to try and avoid certain places to try and keep yourself in the best possible situation is going to be really important. And then, like I said, there needs to be something throughout your day, your week. And obviously, like Ashwin, when you're finding out that it's time to pack up and just move everything out, focusing a little bit of time for yourself is really hard and almost impossible to think about. But just to remember that a half hour of time for yourself is going to give you an extra hour of energy, or whatever that ratio might look like. So giving yourself just a little bit of time to decompress, take some deep breaths, gather your thoughts, you'll be well better prepared managing some of these, unknown difficulties that are hopefully not going to present, but may actually.
I actually commit to 30 minutes meditation every single day nowadays
Mm-hmm.
since that. So
Mm-hmm.
it helps a lot.
I was going to ask, and we do have a question in the chat, but I was going to ask Ashwin and Esjay, what do you do on a daily basis to maintain your mental health? And I know, you know, we talked about all of these stresses and everything, but Ashwin, you mentioned 30 minutes of meditation. How has that transformed your mental state?
It helps find silence and a detachment from the outcomes. Because, you know, as soon as you wake up and you check your emails, you get on with your day, you try to find some work and you have to do this back and forth. There's a lot of noise throughout the day. We tend to just attach ourselves into it. And then when we do that, our minds also start ruminating and we have a lot of thoughts and stuff. Meditation definitely helps you detach from your mind itself as well, like even your own thoughts. We tend to believe that we're the voices in our head, we're the thoughts that we have. And then meditation helps us really give us that perspective that whatever we see, we're observing it. So because we're observing it, it cannot be what we are. And that helps really, you know, establish yourself in a place of a natural state, a place of calm, a place of peace that allows you to move in through the day. No matter how chaotic it can become, you can still be in a place of silent contentment.
Mm-hmm. I'm definitely still trying to find that balance. I have not found it. Meditation is not something that I am able to do. Exercise is not something I love to do. So it's always forcing myself. And so definitely, I personally have not found that balance yet. And it has definitely affected my relationship and my mental health. And again, this is all rooted into I can't fail.
Right.
I have to succeed. If I'm not working, I'm a loser. You know, these are all conversations that and it's my own pressure on myself. So I was just talking with my partner this morning that we definitely need to find a better balance, because my life is 24/7, constantly creating with and for other people, and that's incredibly emotionally demanding and physically demanding and mentally demanding. And I definitely do not take care of myself, but it is something that I'm striving to achieve.
Thank you so much for your vulnerability and honesty. And honestly, I mean, a lot of what you said resonates with me. You know, I'm an artist myself, and I feel like in an industry, in this particular industry, it is pretty difficult to take care of yourself. It's not an industry that lends natural support. So it is an industry where you do feel that you have to be on at all times, to either meet the moment or not pass up an opportunity. And so it can be very difficult and challenging to prioritize your own care.
And I think a lot of us also grew up with the no one cares, just get on with it.
Yeah.
You know, and that's definitely the generation I come from. And it's just like, nobody cares about your feelings. So, and nobody is coming to save you, and nobody is here to help you. So get the F up and do it, you know? So it's just, you're constantly in survival mode, which is high cortisol, craziness, stress, always, all the things. But I listen, I think that the music industry, as much as I'm so grateful to be a part of it and have had a career in it for the past 25 years, it's probably the most toxic industry on earth. And we choose that. So I think it also says a lot about who maybe we are as people, you know, choosing to try and be in this industry that's just so yucky. for most of the part.
So that kind of lends itself to a question from the chat, which is, given all of these challenges of the industry, why do you personally feel it is worth it for yourself?
I definitely think it's worth it because back home there is no industry. And second, being an Indian immigrant in the part of the world I was in, it was a lot harder for us. We had to work 10 times, if not 100 times harder than our, counterparts, our brothers, who, didn't have to work as hard to, achieve things. I've been rejected jobs based solely on the flag that I have attached to my name. I've been given half pay. I've had to fake my accent to prove, I had to lie that I was, from the country just so that I could get an equal pay. Because if they had found out that I was Indian, they were like, oh, for these people, we give them half pay. Wow. So I'm very grateful to be here because I feel like as much as there is racism in every country, there is, political challenges and stuff. I do feel like this place is a lot more merit-based and there are a lot more beautiful opportunities. And if you are really authentic and true to yourself, you will gravitate and attract the people that are genuine and authentic. And there are good people in this industry too. So I just hope to be around them more.
Mm-hmm. I love that. Is it worth it? That's the question. I think as I'm getting older, that really is the question that I'm asking myself, because my self-worth is so deeply rooted in my achievements in the music industry that it's, I think maybe if I think that the youth and younger people have a lot more support now and how really finding a better balance. Whereas I think for a lot of in my generation, there is no balance. Again, I'm so grateful that I'm one of a handful of people that have had this as my full-time job for 25 years. It's mind-blowing that I wake up every day and I have somebody leaning on me to help them bring their sonic vision to fruition. It's just what an honor and a privilege. But that also means you're constantly in a state of serving and selflessness, and there's often not a lot of cup filling that comes back. So I don't know. I think these are a day to day. It changes. Sometimes I'm like, this is the greatest thing ever. Sometimes I'm like, what am I doing? but I think that's a beauty also of being a creative and an artist is that we have peaks and valleys which we can draw from. And now that I know that Backline is here, and I think these are just such incredible resources that honestly I didn't know existed, and it's so important to be able to have that conversation.
I mean, this is why I love personally hosting these conversations with the SONA Foundation, because we need to hear these perspectives. We need to hear the honesty of what it's really like working in the industry in a day-to-day basis, and also the mental peaks, highs and lows of working in the industry and the pressures and the expectations that come with this. Because while it is a privilege, it is also very, very exhausting. And I think those on the outside need and want to hear these very real, honest perspectives. And I would just like to reiterate to those watching this conversation what Esjay mentioned. Backline is here to help you, anyone in the industry. If you're currently struggling and need that support, Ari is in charge of is our clinical director and in charge of our case management process. And everything is free. You can just go submit, and Backline's kind of the bridge to help you and also find the help you need. And also the SONA Foundation is just an incredible resource. They have grants to help you pay for therapy. They have so many different areas, not just in mental health, but financial wellness, the whole holistic support that you need as a creative in this industry. So I would really just encourage anyone watching, and also Esjay and Ashwin, if you need support, the SONA Foundation and Backline is absolutely here for you all.
Thank you.
Yeah, and I just really want to thank you both so much for sharing your perspectives and your journeys and your stories. It is such a difficult time to, navigate just life, I feel, in the day-to-day, let alone the added pressures of this not necessarily always being the most inviting space. So I just really want to thank you both so much for your vulnerability, and because it's going to help a lot of folks who are also feeling the way that y'all have felt.
Thank you.
I appreciate you having us on here and sharing our stories with you. So it means a lot.
Thank you so much. And thank you so much, Ari, for being here and for being the grounding voice for, just knowing like you're not alone. There are ways to get out of any kind of anxiety spirals. And also a great reminder that community is truly what's going to get all of us through these tough times.
Thank you.
Totally.
As always, I really appreciate, and I'm just honored to be a part of these conversations. And as Terra mentioned, if you're even just curious about how the SONA Foundation or Backline can help support, like, email us, ask a question, we will respond. And if we can't help, we will help you find the right people who can.
Thank you, Ari.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you. And thank you. I think as humans, we are wired to seek connection. So it's so wonderful to feel like we're a part of something bigger than ourselves. So thank you. Thank you both for having us.
Thank you all so much.
Hi, Terra.
Hi, Ariel. Thank you so much for creating this space.
Man, oh man. Just listening, Ashwin said something at some point in the conversation about how he realized at some point that he needed to just lean into his identity, lean into his cultural background, the influences and the experiences that he'd had. And we're in a time where, and maybe all times are like this, where that's also dangerous. It feels vulnerable to step out of line and say, this is who I am. And yet, of course, that is the richness of, that's the richness. And somebody, I can't remember who said it, was talking about the musical influences in the United States, and how people really like new sounds. They really love freshness and newness. And for sure, that is something that has been true across many industries in the US, which is, and not just the US, like globally, going back to all time, people leave their borders to seek something new and fresh, and then they bring it back to their borders and present it to their countrymen and say, hey, look at this cool shiny thing that I discovered from another corner of the world. And that creates new trends and new art forms. And that's really something that's always been a part of music. And it's like holding these two things together, like leaning into and embracing the unique backgrounds that all of us have. Well, maybe not everybody, but you know what I mean. And then the other side is this socio-political pressure right now for sameness, and anybody that pokes their head out is in danger of being, ostracized or canceled or shipped out, or whatever it is.
Yeah, it's it's the diversity and the stories and that richness that you mentioned is what makes this country great, right? It's what makes this country. And so I think for me, it was really nice to hear the perspective that those born here do have a certain privilege that I honestly forget, and so it was really nice and powerful to hear Esjay and Ashwin's perspectives, and kind of just really, reminded me that, yes, like while this country has so many issues and so many problems, that there really is a privilege to at least be rooted here. And so this conversation was, we're at a difficult time in this country. It was so needed, though. I feel like it was very, very necessary. As difficult as it is to hear such trauma and hear such grief, it's a lot of folks are going through this. And so I hope that folks can see and hear their own stories reflected in Esjay and Ashwin's, and know that they're not alone in this experience.
Yeah. I know that every month we have conversations about different human experiences that, the mental health impact, the creative process impact, just humans who are songwriters having these experiences. But today's conversation, I keep waiting for the tears to kind of soften in me, but I keep feeling like I'm about to cry. And at this moment in you and I talking at the end of this, I keep expecting that to kind of like soften and integrate. But I feel very, very moved. Knowing that, in the lead up to today's conversation, I had conversations with a couple of other people who are songwriters and also have immigration stories. And every single person's experience is different. They come from different places at different times. They have different levels of support, and it's a different political moment, when they come. And every single one of these stories is so different that I feel like I feel enriched by this conversation today. And I feel like hearing story after story after story, like more of these stories, I would feel more enriched. And also I feel like all these stories together kind of help for me, piece together, like, what is the United States right now? What is the music industry? Why do we sit here in the challenges, despite the difficulties of being in the music industry, being artists, and for folks who had to cross over the borders to get into here, why is it worth it? It was heartwarming to hear both of these people say, well, I don't always know if it is, but there is a lot of beauty. There is a lot of opportunity. I don't know. I feel very moved. Yeah.
I mean, I'm feeling that way as well. Just very honored to be a part of this conversation and to hold that space for Esjay and Ashwin to be able to just share their experiences and their journeys that, we couldn't possibly imagine. But I truly hope more conversations like this happen, because I think that's how we bring empathy and compassion back to these spaces and realize, like you said, every single person's story is so different. And there's so much value in hearing these stories and supporting these stories. So I'm just really honored to be a part of this. Like, thank you so much again.
Yeah. Thank you, Terra, and thank you for a great conversation. I'll see you next month.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. And thank you all for listening, for being part of the chat. If you are catching this in the replay, feel free to continue to contribute your stories and your questions, and we'll keep the conversation going, and we'll see what comes next.
They say the eyes are the windows to the soul. Well, I can fuck with you if you just keep them closed. If the world were even half as genuine as me, then war would be another distant memory. But that's my ego talking. Yeah, I'm constantly deluded by awareness, guided by these enemies. It's funny that I have all these different sides to me. How I balance all of them to me is still a mystery. I'm aware that I can talk by pussy, money, weed, and some I make it spiritual, what that's my destiny. My heritage goes beyond the land of two seas. Or would I rather say beyond the seas connecting we? Are we all a figment of subconscious machinations? Or the play of a universe, dreaming in the basement, genderless identity, colorless and never seen. Yoga from my yogini, manifest the evergreen. Music from Saraswati, gratitude I got from Christ. Shiva teach me how to be Yahweh in my dreams tonight. Allah.
I'm not afraid of the man who has done 1,000 different moves.